also, if you believe in the idea that God punishes you when you do a negative action and rewards you if you do a positive action, that's similar. Why? Because if there's a sense my actions have consequences, whether you talk about karma or being punished, etc., you were just more careful. You have regret after you generate an action. If there's a sense no matter what I do, my actions have no consequences, that's more dangerous. Because when you do something negative, who cares? No regret, right? Of course, you could be a naturally moral person, think of the other person, what you've done, and therefore generate regret. But if you're lacking that, and there's no sense of regret, or this is a positive, negative actions, then it's much more dangerous. Or if you took a vow, yes. So if you took a vow, for example, it protects you. It protects you from engaging in a negative action. Is that what you mean, Leora? Yeah, because you break the vow. But no. But here we're saying if you know about karma, doing a negative action is not as bad. It's not as bad as if you don't know about it. No, if you know about it, it's not as bad. Well, why? Because, and I just read to you what it says in the Lamrim. The support refers to the person who performs the action. The consequences of a negative action are far worse for a person who is ignorant about the working of karma, or ignorant about the fact that actions have consequences, whether that's based on the Jewish or Christian or Muslim ideas, because they may not be aware of the negativity of their actions, experience no regret, are unable to generate antidotes to purify the karma, and do not know how to prevent such action in the future. So if you know about, you see, an action generating a negative action, if you know it's negative, you're more likely to generate regret, right? So even if it's based on an Abrahamic faith where you have the idea, oh, God may punish me, at least there's like, oh my God, I don't want to be punished, or I really regret. And that's already a great antidote to the action. If you have some kind of understanding of moral conduct and so forth, then you're more protected because you know antidotes to negative actions. But if you have no inkling of like positive, negative actions, all the same, there's no consequence to my action, so then you don't have regret, you don't avoid an action, you just do whatever you want. That's more dangerous.
And why is the positive more positive?
Pardon?
You're not aware of the bad things that you do, the negative things, and you might continue even do more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you might even do it more. Of course, knowing that something is negative and still doing it, that is definitely very negative. But we're not talking about this here. This is a special case. We're saying if someone knows about karma and they do something negative, they're more likely to generate regret, to generate a wish to change it. So the more, you're just scared. You're just worried. You're concerned. That's what this is saying. Of course, if you know it's negative and then you do it on top of it, that's worse than someone doing it and not knowing it's negative. That's different.
And why is the positive more positive?
Why is positive here? A person is familiar with the law of karma, on the other hand, is far more able to distinguish between virtuous and non-virtuous actions. Okay. They're also more likely to enhance their positive actions and defend themselves against afflictions. Therefore, a negative action is more powerful, and a positive action is more powerful if the person does live in accordance with the working of karma. Because you don't generate regret. You make sure you don't generate regret after positive action. You possibly rejoice. I mean, you know all the nitty-gritty details about how you protect yourself. You make sure you don't generate anger. Yeah, you dedicate. Yeah, so it's like this, the more you know about it, the more you can protect your positive actions and make sure they don't get destroyed. Yeah. But of course, if you know, and like Leora said correctly, if you have vows and you go against them, or you know it's negative, you still do it, and you just couldn't care less, that's of course worse. But most people are not like that. I mean, who's that self-destructive? Pardon? Most times. Sometimes women go, I don't care, I'm just going to do this now. But how often, right? So sometimes we may be like, it may be even, but most of the time we're more careful. Okay? Then also positive karma becomes weightier if the person who accumulates the karma holds vows. So any positive action if you hold vows. Now, there's a recommendation for those who don't want to take vows to make a promise. To make a promise is similar to a vow. So if you don't want to take a vow, it's too heavy. You decide, okay, I'm just going to make a promise today. You can take a one-day vow. You can take the Mahayana precepts. So for one day, you don't accumulate, you don't engage in killing and in stealing and so forth. So with the vow, you get a special protection. You only have it for a day. You know this day, I'm not going to do anything negative. So that's a very powerful way of accumulating a lot of virtue because you made a promise initially. So making a promise is already said to be, so taking a vow as in like taking the Mahayana vow, or just making a promise. Today I will not harm someone. If you then don't harm someone, there's great virtue in that because you've also made that promise. Okay? So it's advised for those who do not want to take vows to make promises. Today, the whole day. So when you get up in the morning, you set your motivation for the day. If you just go, I will not harm someone. I will try my very, very best to not harm someone. If you then really refrain, of course you may unintentional, or you may also harm someone, but the positive, that how many times do you harm someone? I mean, 24 hours in a day, it's very unlikely that you harm someone more than 2 minutes or something. So then the rest of the days when you don't harm someone, because of the promise, there's great virtue. It's just the power of the mind that makes that action even more virtuous. Then powerful in terms of the substance. So if you give an object, like the more beneficial it is to the person, the more powerful the action. So giving drugs to someone who's a drug addict, very negative. Giving something they need is very positive. But then also depending on what you give, right? I mean, giving a fishing rod to someone instead of giving a fish and teaching them how to fish, that's better, right? And so forth. So giving the Dharma. And that doesn't mean you have to give teachings like verbally, but just being an example of a virtuous person, that is a practice of generosity. Because you give the Dharma, by the way, you inspire others to be like yourself. So it's a very precious substance. Okay, and then powerful in terms of the motivation. Well, yeah, obviously the motivation is very important. Okay, so those are 4 factors that are described as important because they make an action more powerful. Jonathan, yes?
Lots of the things you said are very compelling, and I can emphasize the idea that accepting karma as engaging in positive thoughts can help me live a better life. However, I can accept it let's say from a rational perspective, within the frame of a single lifetime. That is to say, it's basically not necessarily karma in the Buddhist sense, but self convincing oneself, like cognitive behaviorist theory. Think positive and you'll think more positive, act more positive, and you'll gain from that. In the long run, within this timeline. But then, I do not necessarily need Buddhism. I can go to cognitive therapy.
It's true.
And the argument, it seems to me, is becoming strengthened. If you accept rebirth, then the idea of karma and past influences, future consequences becomes stronger. And I'm wondering, of course, karma precedes precedes Buddhism. It comes from Hinduism, and I'm wondering whether during the past 3,000 years or so there has been any theory that can formulate the mechanism that explains the possibility, at least, of karmic consequences. Because unless there is one,
What do you mean, like theory that?
how can
you prove it?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what you said yesterday. I'm thinking not prove it, but make a plausible explanation.
Give a plausible explanation.
Because unless we have one, I'm obliged to make a leap of belief.
But, Jonathan, how many courses...
Make this leap of belief.
Okay, let me just ask you one thing. How many courses on Buddhism have you done?
Not too many.
Not too many. You see, this takes time. What you're asking me, I cannot provide because there's not enough time. You see, like, it's a matter of you going into more detail on these ideas. All I can do is present you this. And you need to think about it. You know, you need to give it time in order to me, it's totally plausible to tell you this. Was it plausible after one Buddhist course? No. After 10? No. So it took me a while. So in the end, all we're doing is just presenting something to you. You can do it or you can leave it, right? In the end, it's your choice. What you said about there are other techniques, I totally agree. So see which one works better for you. My argument yesterday or the day before yesterday was, well, maybe there are future lives. We don't know there aren't. So this is helpful from the point of view of future lives. And maybe just to be safe, live accordingly, because if there aren't any, at least there's no regret, right? But really what is important is I've given them, everything I know about karma is in here. I mean, everything I know is written about karma. I mean, maybe some details are not, but I've just put it all in here. But just reading this is not enough. It gives you some kind of outline, some kind of framework. And then look at other things and see whether it makes sense or not. Use your own intelligence. It's not about, you see, the thing is like, sometimes people would like a proof, or you'd say not like really a proof, but some kind of evidence. Evidence in itself is not enough. A plausible explanation is not enough. Because you need to have a mind that's flexible enough to understand the plausible explanation. For example, I like to give the example of a person who, let's say you're temporarily blind, right? Temporarily blind. So you're temporarily blind and there's no eye consciousness that can arise with regard to a certain object. Someone can show you the most beautiful flower. If you lack the consciousness, then the flower, you can't perceive it. So similar, in Buddhism, there's the idea you are given reasonings, but the mind needs to expand. The mind needs to become more flexible. So there's certain reasons that initially are totally useless. That don't make sense to you. So it's a matter of taking it slowly, going at some points that make sense to you, that are plausible to you. Look at those. Do they make sense or not? Focus on that. And if it's plausible and it makes sense, then you go, okay, there's something else I really haven't understood yet. So you focus in on that and see whether you can come to an understanding on that. So it's impossible. Like what I'm doing right now is give you a crash course, like on physics, for example. You need to start at the easier bits, comprehend that. Then your mind grows more flexible. Then you go further. That makes sense. Your mind grows more flexible. And slowly your mind is able to take in more things. You can get the most plausible explanation at the beginning. Your mind is not ready yet. Right? The mind needs to be made more flexible. Likewise with yoga, there are the most beautiful movements. But my body's not ready yet. When I do them, I just fall over. When a person whose body is ready, they do these movements, Sippy does them, looks elegant, she gets all the stretching she needs, I just fall over. So the body, in the same way as there are certain exercises that are very beneficial, you can't start with them right away. The body needs to be made more flexible, needs to be prepared. So you start with little things, this or that or something, right? That's the right thing for me. And then when that's more flexible, I may try this. Right? And then slowly I take it from there. So Buddhism is like that. You make the mind more flexible. So I cannot provide you with this. I can provide you with this explanation here, and then it's up to you to take a step at a time and make your mind more flexible. And at some point you may find, no, it's not the right thing for me. Right? But I notice the people that come to these courses again and again, there's a difference from last year and the year before. They changed. They're more accepting of things that last year were like, oh my gosh, that doesn't make any sense. Slowly they've made sense. So I noticed that from being with them, but I also know from my own mind. Things that initially were like impossible for me to understand. Slowly they made more sense. Now can I share that with you? No, because I have a different mind than you do. I'm not saying my mind is in any way more advanced, but my mind is just more used to it. So whatever you've learned, if you're a scientist, for example, try to explain me what you know about physics. I'm just going to fall over and fall asleep. Because I haven't gone step by step. It's like everything what we study here. I'm giving you a university course. You may not even have started elementary school. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying from a Buddhist point of view, it just takes time. Give it time. So unfortunately, I can't give you a plausible explanation, and it goes back to this kind of step by step by step by step. So this is a crash course. Okay? All right. We have a break, actually. We should have a break. Okay, I've given up on finishing the whole text. Never mind. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. I'm just thinking better is to give you what you need. Okay, so you...
If you do it, you'll get to the third.
Pardon?
If you do it, you get to the third.
You get to...
I mean, if you do the first and second, then cessation happens.
Right, that's true. That's true too. If we understand the first and the second, then cessation will actually... Yeah. Okay, but anyway, let's take a break. 15 minutes enough? Okay, let's do 15 minutes and we meet again at 11. Right.